What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters, covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve. Join my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
It's been too long, man. Been too long. Sorry for our listeners there. You know, it's rare that we leave you hanging without an episode for more than a week or so. It's been about 8 or 9 days. Guest fell through, so sometimes it happens. But the good news is we have lots of meat on the bone to talk about tonight. Basically, second, almost third week of the season here. So let's get it going.
A lot of baseball has happened since we last joined you guys, but to support the show here, again, go to IG and X at Tablesetters Pod is where you can find us. Support the show. Please leave a 5-star review. Tell your friends about it. We are 76 episodes deep into the journey here in our second season of baseball. And like Devin said, we're approaching really getting the meat of it. We talked about opening day last week and discussed all the things that went down and all the pageantry. Now we're in the meat and potatoes of the season. We're getting going. And I heard John Boy say this over on Talking Baseball. It really feels like the season begins when you have a weekday 7:05 pitch where you sit on the couch after work. That's when the real season begins.
Yeah, it's been kind of nice, like lots of day baseball, some more 4 o'clock games than anyone else expected. Teams moving their games to earlier times with some of the weather that we've gotten, whether it be wind or cold, or we had some snow in Colorado. So players dealing with the elements, teams trying to get the games in. And I got to say, I don't want to really jinx it, but like knock on wood here, we've done pretty well with the lack of cancellation. So I like to see that management is out there on the forefront, like figuring out, all right, maybe we try to do something ahead of time instead of waiting and having to cancel a game. So moving the time up a few hours, if that's going to help. Good job on them. The Mets played at 4 today. There's supposed to be a 7 o'clock game, but it is windy as hell. And we got a freeze alert on April 8th here. So good job by the teams that are getting those games in.
Yeah, it's cold here in New York, but even colder in Detroit where the Yankees are. We saw some snow yesterday, and man, this April weather is unpredictable, as you mentioned. A freeze alert here, and baseball. I mean, we await warmer weather, and you don't take in consideration sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate for baseball. People want to be out there in short sleeves enjoying it. When I went to the Yankee game 2 weekends ago, or it was 2 weekends ago at this point, to watch that home run barrage. It was 80 degrees in New York, and I thought the weather has completely turned. The groundhog was wrong, and we have a complete rebirth of spring, but not to be, man. Getting up early, taking that train and sitting on the platform over there, and with the wind blowing, you would think it's February 10th, not approaching April 10th. So I can't wait for those July days in the ballpark, man, with the rocking a t-shirt, drinking a beer, and the warm weather. And this weather sucks, man. I want the spring to be here.
Yeah, for me, I always say, like, I could do without the cold. A lot of New Yorkers like ourselves say, like, oh, if we ever moved away somewhere warm, they'd miss the winter season. Not me, man. The winter season does nothing for me. I'm not a winter sport type of guy anyway. So I'm with you. I'm ready to leave the cold, windy, snowy, rainy weather behind and get to some nicer skies.
Well, let's head to the opening say here and talk about one of the guys that probably can go anywhere he wants in the world with the new contract he signed. Got some big news dropping in the shadows of the night. Toronto Blue Jays first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has signed a record-setting 14-year, $500 million contract extension, which marks the third largest deal in MLB history, only behind Juan Soto's $765 million and, of course, Shohei Ohtani's $700 million contract. This deal includes 0 deferred payments, which is a rarity in the mega contract, especially in this day and age, Devin. And, I mean, this is Toronto's franchise cornerstone. He's going to be with the team, believe it or not, to the year looks weird on paper, 2039. And this sends a strong message. We see them trying to lock up outside free agents, but it was always a priority to lock up the one that was already in-house.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted their guy. They got their guy. They've tried to get other guys, and they haven't been able to do it. So they were pretty dead set on doing this. It's interesting because Vladdy had come out and said he was not going to negotiate once the season started, and that ended up being a little bit of a fib, I guess, which tells me he liked the direction it was going and decided, like, all right, we'll stay in this because I think I kind of like what I'm hearing here. I guess another negotiating tactic we hear a lot from players, like, we're not going to negotiate during the season. I think there's a little more of that than we think. I feel I have mixed emotions about it. I go back and forth. In one way, I think 14 years for a first baseman, future DH, is crazy. And on the other hand, it's like, because it's the Blue Jays and it's their guy, I'm kind of okay with it. They locked down their guy. And there's something to be said for having a premier attraction that will then entice other free agents, maybe slightly lesser free agents, come to be a part of your team. Like, oh yeah, they have a cornerstone guy there. They'll be on my list of places to check out. It gives them a little bit of credibility, I think, where for a couple years the Blue Jays were kind of a running joke with, like, we thought Ohtani maybe, and we thought all these other guys, and it just didn't turn out. But Vladdy's their guy. They're putting their eggs in that basket, and they can try to build around him for years and years and years. And they've just got to hope that the MVP-like season that he put up last year is a season that he can repeat for a long time. And that's not to say when he gets to that last year of his contract, 39 years old, 40 years old, whatever it is, that the expectation is still the same. But I think you need the next 5-6 years to get some dominant efforts there, maybe an MVP season or two to feel good about it. But that's where I am. We know first baseman contracts do not age well, and this is one of the biggest of them all. So I think we know what the end is going to look like if he can even get there. But let's see what he does for the first 5 years before we jump to conclusions.
And we can't help but think about your guy. I know there's an East Coast bias over here talking about the New York Mets and New York Yankees on this podcast sometimes, but Pete Alonso, I feel like, affected this in a lot of ways. Of course, we know Steve Cohen and the Mets are big spenders. We know that they would have been in the market for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s services if Pete Alonso did not return to Queens. But also, I think Pete Alonso's situation last year was a cautionary tale of leaving money on the table and being left out there and taking a deal that was less significantly to what the deal that was offered. And this is a deal that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been looking for. They were looking for the number. They hit the number. You mentioned not wanting to negotiate during the year, but they hit a number that was, as I mentioned, the third largest deal in MLB history. So for a first baseman, we know it's not going to age well. We're not even making disparaging claims towards the body type. I know that's been conversations about him. Seems like he's in better shape this year, as you mentioned, offensively coming alive once again. This is a player that's been one of the most dominant forces in the league since its breakout 2021. Came out the gate, finished his AL MVP runner-up, and really hasn't stopped. I mean, he's put up elite numbers at the plate. You look at some of the numbers on the top end projections, all the advanced statistics have this guy aging out at being a Hall of Fame player, better than his father. On the bottom half of that, though, if you watch the way this goes, this could age poorly in the first 5 years. Like, if you look at the way this goes, if things go poorly. But I would say if you look at the full body of work of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and watch what he's done and the consistency, this is a guy that the Blue Jays had to get. And I think all the history baked into one since we did episode 1 here on Tablesetters, we've been talking about the Blue Jays not being able to secure their guy. They went out there, they were in on the Shohei Ohtani thing, they flew him out there, all that famous stuff that people say tongue in cheek, but they pretty much wanted every single guy. They've gone out there and they sign players because they want to win. And this is a franchise that hasn't had a playoff win since 2016. They spent a lot of money. They have a lot of passionate fans. They want to win so badly. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a big piece of this. So if you look at the way this competitive AL East is shaping out, Toronto's vision is clear. They want to win. Whether they're going to be able to do this with this albatross of a contract as time goes on, the window is right now. But a lot of these players out here, I feel like there is a lot to this right now. And we've opened up sort of Pandora's box of this trade market. We'll talk about Sandy Alcantara with the Mets. And I think the Blue Jays opened up a little bit of that. Like, maybe they emerge as a front runner for them, for Sandy as well, because now it's a win now, right now. They have to get out there and make some noise and get in a box where they want a World Series back in Toronto. And it starts here, trying to sign their guy.
Yeah, and I think the hope is when all is said and done, he'll be known as Mr. Blue Jay, like their guy, the face of not the franchise just now, but like for a long time, he'll be known as Mr. Blue Jay. With that being said, you never know what the future holds, all because he signed this giant deal. I don't know what the details are as far as trade limits or no trade clauses and things like that. But if you told me like 7 years from now he's going to be traded to the Yankees, I wouldn't just say that's impossible, because like Robinson Cano signed one of the craziest deals at the time with the Mariners, 10-year deal all those years ago, and then halfway through it ended up with the Mets. So like, it sounds impossible to trade that contract at the time, but you never know. If the Blue Jays go 4 or 5 years of not getting in the playoffs with Vladdy there from this point on, like, you could see him get a little unhappy and regrettable and and want out. And who knows? But again, I think the hope is by the end of it, he's Mr. Blue Jay. You mentioned my guy, Pete Alonso, and it's going to be fascinating, man. It is so early, so it's hard to extrapolate. But he is, remember, getting paid $30 million this year, and he has a player option, not a team option, a player option at the end of this year for 2026, which that year would only be 24 million. So he'd be making $6 million less next year if he opted in. And I don't know if you've looked. I mean, I watch the Mets every day. This dude is locked in. I have not seen him this locked in since probably his second year in the league, maybe even his rookie year when he went off. He looks like a different player. He looks free and easy. He just looks like his approach. He's not chasing nearly as much. I said over and over again last year when we tried to predict what was going to happen with his contract that like the guy just cannot lay off an outside breaking ball, and pitchers are just getting him out on that constantly. Now I already see some pitchers changing their approach where now they're trying to go fastball up and in. I don't see many of those other ones because he's laying off. And you could say, oh, it's the Juan Soto effect, and partially, but remember, Soto's not batting behind Alonso. He's batting in front of him. So that puts Alonso pressure on him to come through because Soto's not locked in at the plate yet, but he's still constantly on base, which I've already just fallen in love with that part of the game. Like this dude is still so valuable when he's only at like 50% of his capacity, because that's what Soto is right now. Like he's playing 50% of his height. If you watch them every day, it's like I can just tell he's a little off, but he's still on base constantly. It's unbelievable. But anyway, what Pete has done so far, just RBI after RBI, coming through in clutch situations. I believe he's up to 15 RBIs, somewhere around there already, which is, if it's not leading the league, it's right there at the top. So like, if this continues, I mean, he's not going to stay this hot all year, but like he is on track to have a massive year if he's going to feel this good. Bet with Soto and Lindor batting in front of him constantly on base. 24 million next year, especially after the Vladdy deal. Listen, I know Pete is 4 years older, which is a significant part of the argument, but I don't see any way he opts into $24 million next year. I think he truly does want to be with this Mets team long term, but I think he's going to ask them, like, give me more than this. That's going to be a really interesting situation. And we can't end that conversation without then pivoting to Kyle Tucker. I know he's not a first baseman, but he is now the lone biggest free agent going into the offseason next year. He's another guy who is absolutely tearing it up right now. Like Pete Alonso, Kyle Tucker, those are two of the best hitters in the league currently with what they've done so far. Tucker is just getting on base every single game, big moments, power, everything. He's 2 years older than Vladdy. I just wonder what that deal is going to look like. I heard a lot of talk today by multiple people, including Ken Rosenthal, but a few others as well, basically saying they don't feel good about the Cubs' chances at all to keep him past this year, which surprised me because Chicago, big market. But Ricketts, like we know, he's not a huge fan of pushing the limits of the luxury tax. You would think this is the guy he would do it for, especially if he has a gigantic year, because the fans are going to fall in love with him if they have not already. But like, what do you think that contract looks like for Kyle Tucker? Like, is it very similar?
I mean, the thing is, Tucker's camp has a benchmark to work with now. You look at Tucker's defensive value, postseason resume, it arguably surpasses what Vladdy's has done. I mean, you can bring it to the table and you can make apples and oranges comparison and compare the advanced statistics, how these players will age. I would say a deal within the 525, 550 range isn't out of the question for him, if not 600. And this is a player right now, again, because he's the belle of the ball, because no one else is standing there with him, he is going to be sought after in a big way against all these teams. And the Yankees will be in play. You know, the Mets were just going to throw their name in the hat, even though they really where they're going to put him, and they already spent a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, Kyle Tucker is the complete package. We're seeing it this year. Plate discipline, power, contact skills, gold glove defense. He thrives in big moments. This is the guy that you want on your team. And I think it plays a huge part because you have two things checking boxes. Vlad signing his deal, you have that benchmark to bring to the table and say, listen, I have more experience. I'm able to bring a little bit more to the table. And on top of it, he's the only guy out there that someone wants to make a big splash. There's a lot of the undercurrent of these free agents, the depth pieces, really the players that win you championships, the pieces that will go a long way. But everybody wants to make the big splash at the winter meetings. And Kyle Tucker right now is the belle of the ball, and he's going to be fielding all the offers.
Yeah, there's going to be some big fish involved there. And like Vladdy's deal, 14 years, 500 million. Takes him right about to 40 years old, which seems to be what these contracts are going to now with these big free agents. Like, get me to around 40 years old when things are not going to look so great. But so 2 years younger for Vladdy, the 14 years, about 35.7 million a year it breaks down to. Tucker, I'm thinking it's 40 million a year for less years. Now, if we're playing the get me to 40 game, so let's go down to 12. 12 years, around 40 million, I think is what it's going to take if we're talking about he plays a full healthy season this year. So, like, let's see what we're looking at here. If we use the calculator quickly. I mean, 12 for 40 a year gets to 480 million total. It might surpass that. I do think the 12-year mark is going to be around what we get for Kyle Tucker. I do think it's going to be 40 million a year, if not more. So these teams, man, they got to get ready to pony up.
So what if you do 12 for 45 a year and that brings you to 540? I mean, that's the number you may be looking at. Which,
Sure.
again, you have, I think there's a lot of pressure on these teams, especially when you have the ultimate optimism sitting in the offseason of what could be. A guy like Tucker feels like he could be the finishing piece on so many teams. And I still believe, though, I really do, that he's going to stay with the Cubs. I mean, this is, as you mentioned, a big market team. This is a team that has built a lot around really what Tucker is, feels like one of the final pieces that they have to be a World Series contender. And I think by all belief, if they have a magic year in the north side of Chicago, he's going to be tempted to play in Chicago for a very long time. And maybe we take that for granted a little bit on our part, that people fall in love with cities. And we watched Juan Soto last year feeling like he fell in love with the Bronx and it meant nothing. But Tucker feels like he's loving his time. And in the short period of time he's been with the Cubs, it feels like, maybe we say that all the time and it's easy to just get tricked by why he's in the uniform. He looks so natural in a Cubs uniform. I don't know. The Cubby blue looks perfect on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll look just fine or feel just fine in a Yankee uniform or hell, an Angel uniform or any uniform that pays him the money he wants. Listen, there's a reason the Astros moved quickly to trade him after the Soto deal went down. I think they know the player, they know the person, and they must have known or felt like he's going to look for the absolute top dollar. Kyle Tucker is not going to take team-friendly deal in this atmosphere right now of crazy contracts. So I'll go against you here. Just listening to reporters, whether they be beat reporters following the team or national reporters, it just sounds like people have a lot of doubts that he's going to end up in Chicago. I kind of hope he stays there. I don't like the whole 1 year stop. Unless you're Juan Soto coming to my team. I like that. But for the most part, as an outsider, when it's not my team involved, I'd rather him stay put there. But we'll see. I mean, obviously the game is super healthy with these guys getting this crazy money. It's interesting seeing guys get locked up in different ways, which we're going to transition to in just a minute, whether it be a guy that's barely played in the majors suddenly getting locked up for what seems crazy team friendly, or these guys that have been with a team for a little while making hand over fist. So I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting financial atmosphere, I guess you could say.
Well, that's the other thing when we look at the way this is broken down, and we'll certainly have conversations about Kyle Tucker. Well, plenty of offseason conversation, as long as he doesn't pull a Vlad Jr. and sign during the year, which by all belief he will not do. We'll have time to sit here and conjecture where Tucker will land as far as his contract goes. But looking at just the way these teams are constructed, and I'll use this as a bridge to get to our meat of the order. Watching what the Blue Jays did here by inking and putting an albatross of a guy, and this is sort of the old school mentality of getting your guy, your superstar, and paying him for what he did. We watched the Angels pay Pujols for what he did, and we watched how that worked out. Tigers paid Miguel Cabrera, yes, Hall of Fame player, record-breaking player, a lot of great moments bringing people into the ballpark. But at the end of that deal, we saw what Miggy became. We know all these deals don't work out when you get to the tail end, and you're paying for really a short period at the front, and then also paying for the longevity of the jersey, maybe retiring his number, et cetera. And that might be worth a lot to some other people. But what we saw in this wave of extension, of course, we've had this conversation with the teams, the Atlanta Braves of the world, the Tampa Bay Rays, trying to lock up young players before they even realize who they are by giving them life-changing money. It goes against the grain. And maybe the Blue Jays are going to do a mix of all this, trying to lock up their young players in their system when they eventually have the young crop coming up from underneath. But it feels like to invest all that money in a player that, for being honest, the 5 next years are going to be his best crop years. The rest are going to be pretty much average. It feels like it goes against the trend of what MLB is doing. Am I off base with that?
Uh, I mean, the wave has changed a little bit, but just not what it doesn't seem like that long ago that Manny Machado and Bryce Harper got those, huge year deals in the same offseason. And now they're like halfway or more than halfway through that. And both of those deals have aged pretty damn well. Now, obviously, different body types, different types of players than a Vladdy. But those have aged pretty well. And I know they didn't sign with their team that they started with, like Vladdy is, but I don't know. I do think everyone has a little bit of a different approach, and I think the Blue Jays wanted Vladdy to be their guy. He's been their guy, and they wanted it to continue after they missed out on a couple of other big fish that they dipped their toe in the water there. But listen, Vladdy has said for a long time that he does want Toronto to be home for a long time, and I think a lot of people just assumed he was blowing smoke, saying what a lot of players say right before they leave. But maybe there was more truth to that than we thought, and he was pushing maybe just as much as the Blue Jays were pushing. So good for both of them. I don't know how I feel yet. Like I said at the top of the conversation, don't like the years for first baseman, of course, but kind of for the Blue Jays specifically, I can get my head around it and kind of like it for that franchise specifically.
Yeah, I definitely see that point because they have been the runner up or the third runner up in a lot of situations. And I think all of that comes into play. It's hard to just untie that knot that we have. Like the front office has been spurned by the Shohei Otanis of the world, where I think they couldn't fathom a world where they lose their superstar and watch it fall down. And we'll see how it ages for them. And maybe we're wrong here, but or maybe I'm wrong, I should say. I think that it's going to age poorly. Everyone expects that, but maybe it's not about the last 5 years of the contract, as you mentioned. It's about really this trying to maximize, and it'll all be worth it if they can bring a World Series back to Toronto. If they win a World Series and he gets 2 MVPs, everyone would be like, it's well worth the deal. But they have to get back there, and the Blue Jays have shown year after year. Like I said, it's been almost 10 years since a playoff win has happened in Toronto. For all the money spent on that field, they need to start winning some games in October.
Yeah, and that'll be the test. I mean, like you said, these contracts are not about the last 5 years. They're about the first five and maybe a little bit after that, depending on the player. So we really can't judge it until we see how those first 5 years or so go.
So let's head into the meat of the order and talk about the other extensions to happen in the other direction. All right, so since we last joined you guys, we have this extension wave sweeping MLB and a surge in some lucrative extensions for both rising stars and some established players. So since we last joined you, Garrett Crochet inked a 6-year, $107 million deal with the Red Sox as he transitioned into right now their full-time ace, looking every bit of that role. We also had San Diego's Jackson Merrill signing a 9-year, $135 million deal. Arizona extended Ketel Marte for 6 years, 116 and a half. Cal Riley was 6 years, 105. And probably the most shocking one, or jarring, I should say, was Kristian Campbell, fresh off like a handful of at-bats, 8 years, $60 million locked in long-term, which, again, we were talking about it, sort of the bridge from where the Vlad Jr. conversation went, a growing trend. I mean, MLB teams are increasingly aggressive in buying out these arbitration years. They want to get these players before their early free agent seasons. And by locking in some of these talent early, they're gaining cost certainty and they're protecting themselves from skyrocketing future markets like we're seeing with Vlad Jr. If they were able to secure a Vlad Jr. 18 at-bats into his career, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And for the players, for Kristian Campbell, as I mentioned, $60 million is life-changing money. It's security, and it's valuable for them if there's injury, if there's some positional volatility. We know that these players don't always work out, so they're willing to take the deal. And the thing with Kristian Campbell, how young he is, he'll still be able to hit his free agent deal after that and maybe make the money that he thinks he can make as a superstar player. It's a no-brainer for a guy like Kristian Campbell.
Yeah, I think sometimes these guys see the numbers and it's just too much to turn down. The Campbell one reminds me, the only thing crazier that I remember is the Brewers locked up Jackson Churio before he took the field. Like he had not played a major league game yet, and that's pretty nutty to see. But Campbell only a couple under his belt. What is it, 8 for 60. The one that stood out to me is listen, I like every single one of these, to be completely honest. Ketel Marte 100% deserves it. I think he's got another good 6 years in him for sure. Guy's a stud. I know he's on the IL right now, so it's not a great time to make that argument, but I believe in him very much so. Garrett Crochet, they needed to do it to make the trade worth it. You knew that was coming as long as they could kind of come to an agreement. We mentioned Campbell. Cal Raleigh, Mariner fans have been begging for this. Like, at least if you're not going to go get other offense, like lock up one of your key contributors. And they did that. So thank God they did something. Jackson Merrill's the one that stands out. This is 9 years for $15 million a year. This is the one where people were like, oh man, like this is unreal for the Padres. What a steal. When we had Matt Devine from Divine Sports Gospel on here, we talked all things Padres. And at one point, I actually went back and looked because I'm like, I know we talked about this. I just can't remember what his quote was. We were talking about the ownership issue. And they were basically saying if Peter Seidler was still alive, Jackson Merrill would have been locked up already. That was the thought at the time. And this is months ago now that we had this interview, but not all that long ago. But he, at the time, with everything going on with ownership, and there was a lot of questions still, now it's gotten a little straightened out where I think everyone feels a little bit better about some of the comments from the new owners. But at the time, it looked kind of hopeless. He actually said he was like dreading the day years and years down the road that they were going to need to try to lock him up, and basically made it sound like they didn't know if that was going to be a possibility. So if you're a Padre fan sitting there just a couple months after those thoughts, seeing Jackson Merrill get locked up for $15 million a year for 9 years, I mean, wow, because there are flashes. This kid is 21 years old, and there are flashes watching Jackson Merrill of thinking top 5 player, maybe top 3 player one day. Like, the money he's put, I know, I get it. The buying out the rest of the arbitration years and things like that complicates the discussion a little bit. But the money he potentially is leaving on the table, to me, is similar to Ronald Acuna and how much money he should be making. Again, a guy who's blossomed into a top 3 player in the league when he's healthy. Obviously, Acuna's had some health issues for a while now, but the Jackson Merrill thing is fascinating. Just an unbelievable deal for the San Diego Padres that I think will take them into whatever the next iteration of the Padres is a few years from now. He and Tatis are locked up there. And I mean, that is still going to be seen as a fun place to go play because you have those two guys there, even when Manny is done or kind of slowing down. So that's the one that stood out to me. I mean, for you, is there a different one, or is Merrill the one that kind of grabbed the headline for you?
Yeah, Merrill has proved more than Kristian Campbell, but Campbell shows that there's a clear roadmap for the Boston Red Sox. And this conversation about them wanting to lock up Roman Anthony and the same thing over there, doing exactly the trend of getting these players and locking their core up. And this is a team that's willing to spend money. Of course, they did it with Bregman. They have money to spend, but if you can lock up the nucleus of your team and be able to go out there and say that these guys are with you for 8 years or 9 years. But what I will say about the Jackson Merrill thing and why the players union is not sitting there pulling their hair out, similar to what they did with the Ronald Acuna deal and what we've seen down the list of these guys that take the player friendly deals, or I should say the team friendly deals, is because he's going to hit free agency in his age 30 season. And if he is the superstar we think he's going to be, you're still able to get that one last
True.
payday. So I think Jackson Merrill, like, best of both worlds, go out there and win. Right now, the San Diego Padres are doing just that, sitting in the top of the NL West, 9-2. And you mentioned Divine Sports, dude. They're out there at the ballpark. They're in Sacramento last night. They're having a great time, posting great content. So shout out to the boys over there, making great content and having a grand old time watching the 9-2 Pods. And it's been awesome to see. What a ride so far. And if you're rooting for underdogs, if they can somehow overthrow and win this NL West from the Dodgers, what great fun that would be. And they're doing their damnedest right now, winning 9 of their first 11. What else can you ask for? But great news happened in San Diego when the vibes were a little bit low when we had Divine Sports on our podcast during the offseason. Vibes are a little bit low. He was still optimistic, but riding the wave right now like a San Diego surf.
Yeah, and the Merrill thing, I actually did hear that the players union tried to tell him to turn it down. I don't know if you might be right. They might not be completely up in arms, but apparently the advice was do not take that deal. But you're right. You make a very good point of the fact that it's crazy that he's 21 and even in a 9-year deal, which sounds so long, he'll be 30 entering free agency. That's pretty cool. The other part of this, just to wrap up this part of the meat of the order, is the quote that he put out there made some waves during his press conference. Obviously, he heard the noise of he took way too little money. He should have waited for more. his quote was, "I know there's contracts out there that are beyond absurd. There's super amounts of money. But having a relationship with a real human being and a real team like I have here, you can't beat that. You can't just sign for $700 million and want everything to be perfect." So most people that heard that quote immediately said, "Oh, he's taking a shot at Soto." Other people said, "Well, why would he take a shot at Soto? He wasn't even on the team when Soto was there, I don't think." Maybe they crossed paths a little bit. But then there's the Otani in his division, who's the other $700 million man. Easily could have been talking about him, or he could have just been throwing that out there just to kind of defend himself and not really being taking a shot at another player. I know everybody likes to try to make drama out of these things and look for as much drama as they can. But to me, I didn't love that quote just because to me, that is a 21-year-old kid speaking. And I completely get it. 21 years old. How can you turn it down? Living in San Diego, you have good relationships with these dudes. I know last year Merrill talked about how a lot of his teammates have families and stuff, and he's just a single dude. Baseball is everything for him. He 100% focused on baseball right now at this point in his life. Listen, I think 26, 27-year-old Jackson Merrill may look back and be like, all right, I get it now. Maybe I could have done something else. I'm not saying he won't be happy with his decision, but to me, that was a very much a 21-year-old quote when I read it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for the $700 million thing, and that is the benchmark for the best player in the league. And I think he thinks, and a lot of people think that he eventually could be a top 5 player in the league. And he has all the raw skills to do just that. And we've seen flashes of what he's able to do. And if you like playing where you are, $135 million was going to go a long way living in California as a 21-year-old. And he's never going to go for want. That is generational wealth for himself. And you can compare it. It's a seventh of what Soto's making, but still, it's more money than anyone knows what to do with for a regular person. But I know expenses and things like that. And like you said, year 5 of the deal, he's going to be like, dude, I should be making $600 million. That's how good I am right now. If all things go well. But sometimes players turn into John Singleton, though, and make your money and you never amount to who you are. But for every John Singleton, there's a Ronald Acuna and these deals like Jackson Merrill. And for every one of those deals, you got a Wander Franco situation. So this is a roll of the dice for both sides, dude. You roll the dice and you're gambling on a player and you're gambling that you're going to be able to be the player you are. And same thing for Kristian Campbell. I did the math on him. He's 22 years old. At the end of this deal, he'll be age 30 as well. And a lot of comparisons to a young Mookie Betts, dude, looking at what he was able to do and the batting stance, watching on Sunday Night Baseball, he looks just like a young Mookie Betts. It's hard not to just see that. He has the same swing, and this dude was born June 28th, 2002, just to give you a little, just a feel. I mean, 22 years old and feels like he's come into his own. And maybe I'm partial to him because I'm watching him every day because of the fantasy baseball stuff, but he's becoming this nice little nucleus over there. Your thoughts on the Roman Anthony piece and what we're seeing with the top prospects of the Red Sox, maybe locking up the 3 of them?
I'd be surprised if they lock up all 3. I wouldn't be surprised about Roman Anthony. I think I'd be a little surprised if they decided to do that with Marcelo Mayer as well, but who knows? Maybe that's been their plan all along. Roman Anthony is an interesting case. If he keeps on pressing the issue, I do wonder how quickly they get him up here. Because here's the thing: a lot of pieces on offense are playing really, really well. Willie Abreu all of a sudden looks like a superstar himself. So, all right, you can't put him there. Ceddanne Rafaela has not been hitting all that well, but also not terribly. There's a lot of guys in the league struggling way more than he is, and he plays elite defense in center. I think right now, if you were to bring up Anthony, Rafaela would be the odd man out. I think you still keep him on the major league roster if you can and have him play defense and move people around and stuff like that if you really want Anthony up. But I do wonder where that place is going to be for him. Good problem to have, but this transitions perfectly into the last part of this conversation. Good problem to have, but you don't want to mess it up finish my sentence.
The Baltimore Orioles. And you guys know we've been here time and time again. We find our way to talk about the Baltimore Orioles have rapidly assembled one of the most exciting young rosters in baseball, but haven't been able to put the finishing touches on the dish that they have been preparing for us. Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westberg, Grayson Rodriguez, Colton Cowser. Am I missing any of the core right now that we're talking about? Poised to be contending for a long time, and we have to find a way to lock up some of this loaded pipeline. I mean, at some point, there's got to be some sustained success here where, first of all, get a goddamn ace, but also be able to lock up some of these young players. Like, it's just a no-brainer right now to find a way to keep these guys in Baltimore for a very long time if they're willing to come to the table and make a deal similar to what we saw with Jackson Merrill and Kristian Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they got a little bit of good publicity today because there was some report out that said apparently their top offer to Corbin Burns was 4 years, $180 million, which obviously is a very competitive offer. And it sounds like Burns just took the longer years and closer to home because I think he got 6 from Arizona. But so that gave him a little bit of a reprieve on that end. But man, you have a guy like Gunnar Henderson and a guy like Adley Rutschman, and you haven't locked one of those pieces up yet. To me, Gunnar Henderson's the obvious one. Like, you see all these deals going through, and here's the thing: we are not privy to whether they have tried a lot and the player's just not open to it. Because when you see all these extensions, you kind of just start assuming that all these young guys are open to this. It's not necessarily true. There's probably some guys that are so betting on themselves that are like, no, I'm going to play all these arbitration years through, and you're going to see what I'm going to get when they're done. So there could be a little bit of that, but you got to be kidding me if there's not one of these guys that you can get a little goodwill from the fan base, especially after kind of whiffing in the offseason on everything and locking someone up. I think that's the logical pivot. I said it months ago in the offseason, like, all right, well, you lost Burns. A great way to make fans feel a little better is go lock up Gunnar Henderson, right? Give him, extend him somewhere. So I don't know. I'm not saying they have to do it now, all because other teams just so happened, like a million other teams did this on the same day, which is really strange. But I think fans want to see it, and the questions are building up for the Baltimore Orioles, and they're going to get buried under them soon if they're not careful, especially if the performance on the field isn't great. Because if the performance on the field is great, you get a little bit of forgiveness. But if they start being a losing team for a little while here, you're going to hear fans complaining about every single thing. I've already seen lots of Oriole fans talking about how, like, the last 100 games, if you go back to last season and combine them with the first couple weeks of this season, they're well below 500, and that's the team they look like. They have pitching injuries all over the place. Like, something's got to change with that franchise, and I think an easy one is extend one of those dudes.
Yeah, if you look at the Bobby Witt Jr. Deal that he had, 11 years, $288 million, something comparable to that, which is around 26 point whatever million dollars a year. I'm sure Gunnar would want something like that. But the thing is, it fits what the Orioles mentality is of not being, all this, the wasteful spending as they look at his ownership. They want to get ahead of arbitration, the free agency. And if you look at this long-term vision, if you lock up this young core, if you pick 3 of these players and say we're going to invest in them before their market value explodes, and maybe at this point Gunnar has exploded, we already know what he could be, but if you are able to lock in Jackson Holliday on those years he was struggling, I mean, right now he's kind of coming back into his own where he looks a little bit of promising of who we think he could be. But that's the time to sign the guy. If you believe Jackson Holliday is the guy, it's a decisive step into turning the promise into, now you have this guy of, he's there for a long time. If you believe in what Jackson Holliday is, and it feels like they do, you want to avoid being the past teams failing to retain their stars. I mean, Vlad is an example. He stayed with them, but they had to pay handsomely. You don't want the Baltimore Orioles doesn't seem like they're in the game to be paying handsomely for all these guys, nor can they. If all these guys turn out to be the player you think they're going to be, Gunnar already kind of ascended into superstardom last year. And I think he deserves every bit of dollar he's going to get, comparable to the Witt deal. But for Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westberg, and like a Cowser, those guys, yes, we've seen flashes, and all these guys have looked sometimes elite offensively. Lock them up before it becomes this consistent thing where all of a sudden you have 5 franchise players and you can't keep all of them.
Yeah, I mean, the new ownership, they had so much goodwill, and it's only been about a year or so, and I feel like they've already ruined a lot of it. You just got the feeling when they took over, because like the Corbin Burns deal happened right away. You're like, oh, here we go, new day for Baltimore. Like, this is going to be great. And since then, it's just I don't know. We just haven't seen a whole lot. So they got to capitalize on this because fans are getting restless. And again, I'll say it over and over. I know you mentioned other guys there, but to me, Gunnar Henderson's the guy. Adley is interesting because he's such a leader quality, but they have Samuel Basayo like right on the precipice. So I don't know if they necessarily feel the need to go out there and jump that gun. Like, in that respect, I can actually vouch for them a little bit and understand them maybe being a little more patient with the Adley Rutschman thing. Because, I mean, if when you watch Samuel Basayo, I think it's pretty impressive. Now, I get it. Like, why not pay the guy you know what he is already at the major league level rather than depending on the guy that's coming up behind him? And there's an argument to be made there. But all in all, everything considered, Gunnar Henderson's the dude.
Dude, the most damning article, we referenced this episodes ago, was that Mike Elias pitcher list episode. Shout out to the pitcher list, my former employer. Is saying that Mike Elias doesn't want to spend money on players because he wants to win a certain way. And the way to figure out to kind of balance the not spending significant money and overpaying and also locking up players that you know are good. And I just hate the optic, and it may be false, and it may just be based in this kind of narrative that's been written as the negative spin of the Orioles takes shape on like podcasts like us, because we're frustrated watching this window certainly maybe slam shut of contention, is this idea that Mike Elias thinks he's smarter than everybody, and he doesn't just want to win, he wants to win in his way. And that has to be so frustrating for Orioles fans to watch, where they just so badly want a consistent winner, and they got a taste of it watching all the exciting stuff. We called Baltimore, we called Camden Yards an electric factory, the bird bath stuff, everything going on there. And all of a sudden, the negativity is back. And that's just so sad, man. It's such a good market. It's a baseball town. They just want to win. And to have a front office that's unwilling, and you mentioned the deal, and great, that's goodwill for Corbin Burns, but there's other options out there, and you could secure them in a trade deal, and they still refuse to go that route. So they have to do something crucial here, because these teams in the AL East are only getting better.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gauntlet, as we said many times before. And to transition to our next topic, we're going to just briefly mention some injury issues and kind of go through what we think is the biggest deal. And I'll start right here. The Baltimore Orioles, we kind of alluded to it. They have offense for days. They really do. But the pitching situation is getting to be anemic. Like Albert Suarez, who's been playing different roles as far as the pitching staff goes for them for like a year now, he's got injury issues. And now Zach Eflin, who is kind of their ace just because there's no one else there. And then that's not me like trying to dunk on Zach Eflin. He's a good pitcher, but he probably shouldn't be their ace. He's dealing with shoulder stuff now. Underwent an MRI on Tuesday, and the club is still waiting for the results. I mean, if they lose him, what do they have left? Who is starting every fifth day for them, as you still await word on Grayson Rodriguez as well? Eflin exited Monday's start with shoulder fatigue. I mean, we have a list of guys here, and I'll read it quickly, that are dealing with injury issues. Victor Robles, after making an unbelievable, incredible catch in the netting for the Mariners last night, ended up dislocating his shoulder, maybe a fracture in there. All I read is that it will heal on its own, no surgery, but he's going to be out for at least 12 weeks. That's a big deal for the Mariners. They can't really afford to lose those type of guys. Spencer Arrighetti, broken thumb. Blake Snell, dealing with some shoulder fatigue. Doesn't sound super serious. Eflin, I just talked. Ivan Herrera, Cardinals catcher, who was off to a real hot start. He's out for at least 4 weeks. Reynaldo Lopez, whose velocity was down for a while since spring training. We're still kind of awaiting word. Arthroscopic surgery is going to show what the damage is there, and then we'll know more. And then Nestor Cortez, who had a nice bounce back start after the blow up in the Bronx. He's out with some flexor strain issue. So to me, all of these are significant, but I think Eflin jumps out at me. Like, they just cannot. I mean, Reynaldo Lopez, I think, is a big deal for the Braves as well, because Chris Sale had another start tonight, did not look great again. Velocity is a little bit down for him as well. So you got to start wondering, he's not a spring chicken. I know he was the Cy Young last year, but I think we all wondered how long he'd be able to sustain that. So the Braves' depth is not great. We said in the beginning of the season, like, if everyone stays healthy, they're pretty good, especially once they get Spencer Strider back. But if a guy or two goes down, I don't know. Listen, Spencer Schwellenbach, I think, honestly, I could see us talking about him as a top 3 pitcher by the end of the year. Like, there's part of me that feels like he could be the best pitcher in the league, and I know some people might chuckle at that with some of the other dudes we have. I love this guy's game. But if Chris Sale is going to have a down year and Reynaldo Lopez is out for a significant amount of time, you can't put too much pressure on Spencer Strider to be the guy there. I think the Reynaldo Lopez injury is a big one. But Eflin to me is just huge because they just don't have any pitching to spare in Baltimore.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Lopez thing, just to piggyback on what you said, is it feels like there's compounding negativity with the Braves and one thing after the other. That's sort of what we saw last year. They overcame it, but it feels like they're being avalanched with just things that go wrong one after the other, and even big and small. And you even mentioned Chris Sale's velocity being down. It's a Murphy's Law type of situation the first 10 games of the season right now with the Braves, and they're going to have to figure out. And it is a long season. We watched what the Mets did after going what they did in the beginning of the season last year. But right now, the Braves, if anything can go worse, it just continues to just compound on them right now. And Lopez adds to the list. It's just one of those things in the locker room that they look at each other and just say, what can we do? Does someone have a voodoo doll of the Atlanta Braves right now? They have to be looking at each other like that.
And this is the actual. I didn't realize there actually was an update on Lopez today around 4:30. So they went through the arthroscopic surgery on his right shoulder. He'll be reevaluated in July. Positive news is that Lopez could potentially return later this season after the cleanup procedure didn't reveal any structural damage that needed to be addressed. But he'll be shut down completely from throwing until he's reevaluated in July. So, like, best case scenario, you're looking at August, September. So, like, basically have to discount him right now. That's troublesome for Atlanta in the, again, a division that I wouldn't say 1 through 5 is great, but the top 3 are very good teams. And if you're struggling to get pitchers out there every 5th day, that's a tough one. Probably, like, they were able to sustain the injuries to their offense last year, but the pitching, I think that's going to be a little more difficult.
So as we move to the offensive side of the ball, we have Tyler Soderstrom has burst onto the scene, tying Aaron Judge for MLB's lead with 6 home runs. He had a 2 home run game on April 7th, turning some heads, some raw power on his end. And mostly we're looking at some mature approaches to the plate and some discipline we're seeing on his end. He had a rough debut in 2024. This is a bounce back so far. There's no way around it, Devin. I mean, this is one of the brightest early season stories, especially with Sacramento. There's some doom and gloom, some people laughing, and they're playing in a minor league park. It's being filled with fans. Like I mentioned before, San Diego was there. They took over the ballpark in California, and there's been a lot of negativity around the Sacramento athletics team, and some of it deserving because of John Fisher. But the conversation with Soderstrom, we feel good. Now taking this from the perspective of now you have to make room for players. You and I were discussing this logjam, finding place. The Red Sox have the same situation where they need to find places for these players to play when they eventually kind of exceed AAA. And when we look at Nick Kurtz, he's a first base prospect, scorching hot right now, 412, 4 home runs, 472 on base. Now they face a dilemma. Do they promote Kurtz, force a positional shakeup, or do they ride Soderstrom's hot bat and let Kurtz continue to marinate in the minors? There's some chatter that he could DH some corner outfield to get his bat in the lineup, but we know the A's at this point suddenly have this offensive machinery creating some bats here and finding a way to get the most out of these offensive players. And Soderstrom might be the latest story of it. And Nick Kurtz looks every bit of this prospect that we thought he could be. So some interesting stuff happening offensively in Sacramento.
Yeah, Kurtz, Baseball America called him the hottest prospect in baseball this week, headlining the return of their hot sheet after belting 4 home runs. And now listen, he's playing in the Las Vegas minor league park, which has always been known for like tons and tons of offense. But like he's just hitting for average as well. Like it's unbelievable that he was just drafted last year and AAA already looks too easy for him. So I don't. The A's don't necessarily do everything the right way. We know that. That's a nice way of putting it. So a lot of teams nowadays are rewarding guys like this and getting them up. Obviously, there is a little bit of incentive now to call guys up earlier. You can get extra draft picks and things like that, which is nice to see. But I could see them holding him down. I mean, he hasn't been there long anyway. I don't know what the A's goal is this year. If I thought their goal was to be the best team they could possibly be, I'd say they're going to make room for Kurtz. The problem is, even if they did feel that way, they'd have to adjust things. I can't see him playing a corner outfield spot. I think the more logical thing to do is move Brent Rooker to play a corner spot. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but to me, that seems like the more likely scenario. Rooker obviously doing a great job at DH. So, I mean, if you really want to win and you have a bat like that down in AAA, like ready to go, and put him in another hitter-friendly park in Sacramento, like who knows the damage could do? That could be the rookie of the year right now.
Mhm.
And to get back to Soderstrom, like it is nice to see a guy that top 100 guy for a while that just very much in the post hype category that we talk about all the time, to see him get a little shine here, because everyone before the season was, especially in fantasy world, was like, all right, some of these guys in the A's playing in that heat in Sacramento are going to go off this year. Brent Rooker, Lawrence Butler, maybe even JJ Bleday. Soderstrom was mentioned sometimes by certain people, but not as popular as those other guys. So I'm not going to crown the dude yet, because we've seen him struggle pretty mightily at times. But I mean, that's another piece of the offense. If he can keep going, to be tied for the major league lead in home runs is pretty cool, especially when the other name there is Aaron Judge. So shout out to him, and I hope he can keep it going. It's nice to see a kid that's in that post hype category kind of finally show everybody what he's got.
And that ballpark's playing the way we thought it would, and it's only getting hotter. There will be days where they take the field in Sacramento will be upwards of 98 feel on the field. So the ball's going to be flying out of Sacramento. So this offensive stats, this will be, I mean, it's going to be something to watch. I mean, you and I discussed a lot about Sacramento and the minor league effects of the ballpark and all of that. The weather is going to loom large here, and we're going to see it play out in real time in some of these bats, and they'll be inflated, and we'll see offensively both on the road and et cetera. We're going to see a lot of interesting things in Sacramento. Just a quick story here with the Detroit Tigers. Sam Menzin has resigned amid some scandal here. This was abrupt on their end. There's some allegations out there that he was sending unsolicited lewd images to multiple women in the baseball industry. The team was reportedly prepared to terminate him before he stepped down. And the Tigers at this point, this is a guy who is a rising executive, particularly for his role in the team's farm system rebuild and identifying players. And obviously, this casts a shadow over the Tigers organization. They made the right choice here to remove him. I mean, he resigned, like we said, but they would have got rid of him anyway. Um, but yeah, not much more to this story except like these leaders in sports situations, they have responsibilities, man. And you need to be professional and have some standards to your actions. And the Tigers themselves, like, again, they did the right thing. They're distanced themselves from this, but this is the type of shit you don't want to see in the front offices.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have a ton to say other than just like a public service announcement, not only for professionals at the top of their field, but just every male in general out there. Listen, guys, nobody wants those pictures. Nobody. Nobody wants them. Trust me. They just don't want them. All right? That's all I can say. Professional, bottom of the totem pole, top of it, somewhere in the middle. Nobody wants those pictures.
Well said, Devin. So uh, let's let's go to the story about Jaron Duran. They have the Netflix docu-series, The Clubhouse, A Year with the Red Sox, premiering, and there's a very powerful segment that's gone viral on Instagram and TikTok, and people sharing the reel. He shared that he attempted to commit suicide in the 2022 season. He went through it. I'll let you guys watch it and go through it yourself and consume it. He was explaining that the fan vitriol and his struggles on the field led him to a dark place. And this story has resonated across baseball over the course of this, like since this Netflix documentary dropped, and teammates and fans are rallying around Jaron Duran and they're praising his vulnerability, as I am as well. I think it's important to go out there and speak about mental health and being aware that everyone uh, needs to take care of themselves, both physically and mentally. It's something that I'm a huge advocate for. People in sports need to be more about that and making sure that you're embracing therapy and seeking help if you need it. And the conversation too, it seems like low hanging fruit at this point, but a lot of fans out there don't treat these players as human beings. And you could sit in right field and drink 6 beers and start yelling at players. And sometimes these players have thick skin and they can wipe it off. And but for a guy that's in a dark spot, you don't know what's going on in their personal life. For them to also, on top of it, have a fan that's, you know, maybe compounding on the negativity of he's struggling in the minor leagues. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think this adds to the conversation, the openness. This is an urgent voice needed for the mental health and professional athletics. And I mean, all across the world, there's an epidemic across the world. in mental health, and we need to make sure that we're adjusting accordingly and giving people a platform to speak about it.
Yeah, and clearly, like Duran has talked about this kind of stuff before, maybe not to this degree, but to be open like that, it's refreshing to hear from an athlete because you do see the human side of these people, and like you said, you just don't know what people are going through in their personal life, and sometimes a few crappy comments from strangers in the outfield could be enough to really push someone to a darker place. So obviously, thankful that none of that ended up happening, but for Duran, I think he's going to be looked at under a microscope for a long time now that that's out there. Hopefully in a positive way, as because we know he had that situation last year. We were on here last year talking about the inappropriate comment he made caught on a hot mic when they were filming the documentary last year, when someone was shouting it from the crowd. Like clearly, it gets under his skin. He's a guy who's affected by this. And now we can, I'm not saying it was okay what he said last year, but you kind of get a bigger picture of this guy. Like these words affect him. And I think he'll get more and more used to it the longer he plays. And obviously last year he was mostly adored before that issue because he had a great season. But we do have to remember there are fans out there that think, oh, I paid for my ticket, I can say whatever I want. But like there is a line here. Like if it's all in good fun, fine, but like you don't want to cross that line. And to a degree, it is the world of social media nowadays where too many people get too comfortable sitting behind a keyboard, thinking they can say whatever they want. And then that transitions to real life. And for some reason, they think that's still okay. It's not okay either way. Like, just think about what you say to people, no matter who that person is and what position they're in. That's all I would say.
Yeah, words do matter. And like you said, social media, the anonymity of those things have emboldened people to say things across all these different platforms, whether you're a fan of movies, sports, pro wrestling, whatever. These people that are performing are people and they need to be treated as such. So like if you want to criticize things about on the field, but it feels like there's unfair criticism all across. I mean, for me, I mean, if I could type in my name on Twitter and see my name and a lot of negativity around it, like on any given day, no matter how good you are
Yeah.
as a player, as equal part of the positivity, I'm sure there's the negativity as well. And that's got to be exhausting, especially as a person that's vulnerable to it.
Yeah, I think it's just a good reminder. It's just like, watch what you say because, again, I'll repeat it again. Like, you just don't know what's going on in someone's life.
So we also had some debuts with the Colorado Rockies. So Chase Dollander, the Rockies' top pitching prospect, made his MLB debut with a 5-inning, 6-strikeout performance. He gave up 4 earned runs. He earned the win and showed some flashes of electric stuff that made him that first-round pick all the way out of the Tennessee Volunteers. The fastball was sitting 96, 98, and his slider was generating several swings and misses. The Rockies, though, they gave him every chance to remain in the rotation, and I think they're going to continue to have that here. They lack pitching identity as they've always have. I mean, it's very rare that Colorado can find a pitcher to stay there and develop in a way because pitching Coors Field, it might seem like hyperbolic or at this point like ironic to talk about the Rockies pitching, but it's a real thing that they have trouble having pitchers go there. It's very rare that a guy can go there and do their thing. But the other piece was Zach Veen. He's dominating AAA, and through 8 games, he's hitting 387 with 50% hard hit rate, and he's missed time with injuries. He's finally healthy, and he's going to be making a splash in Colorado's outfield soon. There's holes in both of these players' games, as I mentioned, some external stuff. The Rockies, with Dollander being a pitcher, everyone is praising him, but at the end of the day, he gave up 4 earned runs, and maybe that's like the bar for Colorado. But he looked good. I mean, that's the thing. The Rockies are looking for some bright spots. For us talking about the Colorado Rockies here on this podcast in April during meaningful baseball right now, that's a good thing for everybody. And hopefully Zach Veen is as advertised. I mean, the swing and miss stuff, this dude struck out a lot in AAA, and he's going to strike out a shitload in Major League. That's going to be an issue. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on the speed to get on base and find other ways to make him meaningful. So I see a lot of holes in his game, but maybe he can develop and start to fix those things up.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fun to watch at the very least. And right now, I think for Colorado, that's what they need. They need to be a little more fun, embrace some of the young guys they have in the system, kind of like the A's have. Like the A's have little by little become fun because of some of those young players that are up or close to being up, like a Lawrence Butler, a Jacob Wilson, Shea Langoliers, eventually a Kurtz. Like the A's have some fun young kids to watch, and the Rockies, I mean, Ezekiel Tovar has been there, and he's a doubles machine. Brenton Doyle, we've both said how much we like watching that guy. And now if you can add these two guys, Dolander and I'm sorry, I'm watching I'm watching MLB Big Inning here, and just minutes after we talked about Soderstrom, he is now limping around the field, and all of a sudden Nick
Oh, wow.
Kurtz may have a spot, and that's not what we're wishing for. But anyway, I'll tell you what happens once we see the. Oh, here comes the replay, and then I'll let you know, and then we can go back to the Rockies here. So he was playing first base, not running. Oh, he might have been spiked. Okay, so more to come on that. He looks like he's in a considerable amount of pain, but hopefully just got stepped on and he'll be okay. So anyway, with the Rockies, yeah, if you have Tovar and Doyle and then these two kids, like at least there's something to watch and have hope for. The pitcher situation is very tough to be optimistic about because as far as getting a guy to be successful there and stay there, I don't know if that's ever going to happen in Colorado. Like, listen, you want to see them draft pitchers that can strike guys out at a pretty high rate and get lots of ground balls. That's the obvious formula. You got to keep the ball out of the air. That's who they should be drafting. You're not going to be able to sign big free agents there. Like, not everybody is as impressed as Mike Hampton was years ago with the Colorado school system. So if you're too young to understand that joke, go look it up. But so yeah, it's nice to see. I'm glad they did it, and I'm glad they did it quickly, just a couple weeks into the season.
So, I mean, we saw the humidor's effect on Chase Field. And I know, again, the Colorado thing, they've almost embraced it because offensively that they built their team around it and it's sort of who they are as an identity. But there's got to be a way to figure out the equivalent of humidor in Arizona to what it could be in the elevation of Denver. And I'm no scientist. I'm not a baseball uh, savant person that can figure that out. But at some point, someone should be paid big money to figure out a way to find a way to keep that ball from flying out at record marks like it has done for the last how many years since Colorado's been in the league. It
You would
feels like it's
think.
just an obvious thing.
You would think, but apparently not. I mean, because like you said, it's not new anymore. That's for sure.
I mean, the elevation, the air is thin, etc. But I don't know. But if you could find a way to build a team, and we talked about this when I was ranting when we were doing the preview of the Colorado Rockies, finding a way to lean hard into it, but you have to
Right.
be able to get 27 outs on your own. That's the other thing. Like the Rockies, as much as they want to build offensive, like they can slug teams, but it's challenging. So that makes that 2007 run that they got to the World Series ultimately swept because they cooled off because they got too far through by the Red Sox. That was magic, and to watch Colorado do what they did in that team. But I digress. We have some unfortunate news to report in our final story on the Meet of the Order. There was tragedy in Santo Domingo where we had a catastrophic roof collapse at the Jet Set nightclub, claiming at least 66 lives and left over 150 injured on April 8th. So early morning of this morning as we record, this disaster occurred during a live concert by Ruby Perez, who's a merengue legend. He was also among the deceased. And why this is baseball news, of course, is a human thing. Former MLB pitcher Octavio Dotel, ex-Nationals utility man Tony Blanco, and Nelsie Cruz, who's the governor of a province in Dominican Republic, and also the sister of Nelson Cruz, also confirmed dead. Emergency responders worked tirelessly for hours using heat sensors and some sound equipment to locate survivors. This is just devastating to see and hear, and awful. And our thoughts are with the families of everyone affected. It's just, meaning it's unfathomable of people going out on a night out to enjoy a concert and enjoy time with their friends and family. And this is what happens with a roof collapse. And it's just absolutely just horrendous to hear.
Yeah, I mean, well put. Octavio Dotel, I'll always remember as a Met. Like there was a good portion of his career there. I can picture him in the Mets uniform and the exact type of uniform they would wear back then. But also known as a guy who just played for a lot of different teams. Like very memorable player because he wore so many different caps, but was around Major League Baseball for a very long time. But 51 years old, like gone far too early, obviously. So rest in peace to him and everybody else that was lost there. And like you said, thoughts are with everybody involved in that tragedy.
Yeah, World Series champion 2011 with the St. Louis Cardinals. Played for a lot of teams. My '06 Yankees, he was on that squad as well. But donned a lot of uniforms, and oh man, gone too soon. All those people, 66 lives gone and 150 injured. But we're going to head into our next segment here. Take a pitch or swing away. Devin has some topics he wants to bring to the table, or one, I should say. We already talked about the conversation about Kyle Tucker, but we have some other things we want to bring. All right, so we take a pitch or swing away. So Devin, go ahead and lead us in.
All right, so quickly, before we get to the two I had for take a pitch, swing away, I wanted to go through the poll we put up just to get your thoughts on how you felt the results went. We put it out maybe 3 days ago, 2 days ago, something like that. Which hot start do you think is the most sustainable? I chose 4 players. There probably could have been a few others in this poll, but they limit you to 4. Pete Alonso, Willie Abreu, Anthony Volpe, and George Springer were your choices. Alonso won going away here in this vote. 62% of the vote went to him, saying they think it's the most sustainable, the most likely to stay. Willie Abreu got 19%. Volpe got 19% as well. And George Springer, the disrespect, 0% for George Springer. Tough one there. So those results, looking at Pete Alonso kind of running away with it, your thoughts on how that one turned out?
Not surprised. I mean, Alonso's had elite power, as we discussed at length, and his hot start is supported by an increased plate discipline, and he's managing that strikeout rate. And the odd thing is he's off to a hot start, but he's not doing anything abnormal for him. He's just absolutely locked in, as you mentioned before. The underlying metrics do support as well that he is someone that's going to continue this barrel rate, hard hit percentage, support what we're seeing. And I think this is who Pete is when he's rolling.
Look at all that red.
Big piece of that as well. Yeah,
look at
insane.
all that red on our boys page, Baseball Savant page. If you're not watching on YouTube, go look at Pete's Baseball Savant page and then talk to me. The only thing I'll say is Willie Abreu is, I mean, I could probably pull up his page and it'd be just as impressive. He has been absolutely unreal. And the other guys on the list too, like I think there's an argument to be made. They're all off to crazy starts. I kind of agree. I think Pete is the most likely. He's got I don't want to say longest track record because George Springer's been around for a long time as well. But if you had to put money on someone, especially with the situation Pete has this year, I would agree with the 62% going his way.
I just want to mention the Volpe thing just while I have a chance, because we've seen a trend for him. His K percentage is down. The power is clearly up. His OPS is nearly 200 points higher than last year at this time. And really what we've seen, everyone wants to point to the torpedo bat, and that's the change we've seen. But he simplified the mechanics. On the broadcast, they were showing the simplified mechanics of shorten his swing. And the main thing is he's punishing mistake pitches. So pitches will make mistakes throughout the game, and usually Volpe will get jammed on them. He's letting those pitchers pay for that, and he's playing with confidence now. The chase rate is down. He's squaring the ball up. If you look at some of the hot zones for him, it's much more varied than it was last year. It was like for every major league player, it's just down the middle. He's a little bit more widespread at this point, and this feels like a legitimate improvement from year to year. He's not MVP level, but you could say he's fully arrived, and we're realizing who Volpe was, and he's getting more confidence, and it helps that he's batting around some of these guys offensively, and the torpedo bat's certainly not hurting as well. So he's found something thus far in the early part of the season.
No doubt about it. I mean, the power has been impressive. Willie Abreu, I just pulled up his Baseball Savant page, and I was right. Just as impressive as Pete's. Red all over the place. 97th percentile in expected batting average, 96th percentile expected slug, 94th percentile in exit velocity, 91st percentile in barrel percentage, like on and on and on. Like there's red just up and down everywhere. I mean, he's one guy I just did not see coming. I thought he was a nice player, but like legitimately, he looks like he could be a all-star caliber guy. And they didn't necessarily need more offense in Boston, but that offense, man, if it clicks, is scary potential.
The one thing I'm curious to watch with Abreu is we're watching the at-bats and he's making loud contact. You mentioned all the advanced stats. Similar to what we're seeing Alonso, he's squaring up the ball. Unless the power sticks on his end, I feel like pitchers will adjust. And I think we're going to have to see how he adjusts to the pitchers adjusting to him. I think the slash line will probably normalize, but how is he going to go through the the ebbs and flows of a season. And he right now, and a little fun fact about Willie Abreu that I pulled up here from the great folks on Twitter, one of the only a handful of AL lefties with 14 plus hits, 3 plus home runs, 12 plus RBIs, 10 plus runs, and 8 plus walks through 10 games. He's absolutely on fire right now. And you have to imagine
Yep.
like that will normalize, that will eventually flatten out. But at some point, you got to give him credit for working good at bats and making the contact that he is. And you have to be impressed from just the scouting department. This guy was acquired for a backup catcher. Like they have and even with Rafael, you mentioned him before, like bringing him in the fold and finding ways to bring them in there. And these guys are becoming huge pieces to what they're rounding out. Boston's clicking in a big way and finding all these depth pieces that are becoming more than just like extra sprinkles on top of the Sunday. They're essential pieces to their lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be a pain to face that offense. I mean, it hasn't turned into a great record yet, but I just feel like they're going to be a pain to play against if everything starts clicking and people stay healthy. I mean, you mentioned like pitching to them. They're basically pitching to Abreu the same as they did last year, mostly 60% fastball, 20% breaking pitches, and 19% off speed. And like the numbers everywhere, I know small sample size, but expected batting average versus fastballs, 340. Last year it was 234. Expected batting average versus breaking balls, 396. Last year, 222. Expected batting average versus off speed, 417. Last year is 223. Like he just looks like a completely different player to this point. It's
Yeah.
eye-opening.
And it's the confidence too. Like I said with Volpe before, when you start to hit a stride and confidence plays a big part on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and he might just be something clicked. We see it happen year after year. But as we know, this season is a war of attrition. He's not going to bat 400 all year. How is he going to be able to adjust when things don't go his way or pitchers have his number? That's the
Yeah.
real test if he can be sustained. We saw Rafael go through a cold streak last year, and he did bounce back, and he kind of established who he was and found an even playing ground. But Rafael got off to not as much of a torrid start as Abreu did last year, but Rafael clearly put himself on the map last year and became a huge piece of that line. Where the Red Sox, I mean, there's expectations on the season this year. Last year, the Red Sox came in as like kind of ho-hum. No one really was talking about them. And Rafael was a huge bright spot in the early part of the season and continued throughout the summer.
Definitely. And the good news for those guys, young guys, like when they do go through their cold streaks, at least they're not being relied on as like they have to carry the team. Like you
Yeah.
have Devers there who snapped out of it, right? Just a week ago, we were talking about like, is Devers broken? And now we're not even talking about him because he's had a few good games and the batting average is right back up. And obviously Bregman there, a calming force, a guy who's been through everything, and on and on and on. Like they have offense coming out their ears. So I think they'll be okay even when they do go through those cold streaks. But you're right. It will be interesting to see what they look like when they go through their first few slumps. And Pete Alonso will do that as well. And just trying to break through that, get through it, not change too much, and just keep on doing what got you there, I think is usually what most people have to do to stay successful.
So you did have a take a picture swing away segment here. As we mentioned, we did the
Yeah.
Kyle Tucker stuff. I mean, we can talk a little bit about that, but you do have one that was an interesting conversation that we are crop up in a lot of friend groups when we talk about going to baseball games.
Yeah, so I got two, but the first one I think you're alluding to here. So again, if you're new to the show, take a picture swing away is a segment we do from time to time, especially during the season. We didn't do it a ton during the off season, but it's basically a buy or sell, just with a different name. All right, so if I'm going to read the statement, if Steve basically agrees with it, he's going to swing away, and if he's not so sure about it, he's going to take the pitch, let it go by. All right, so here's the first one. Wearing a jersey of a team who is not playing in the game you attend is lame. That's the statement. An example would be Mets fan goes to a Yankees game with some buddies of his that are Yankee fans. Mets are not playing the Yankees, and he wears his Mets jersey. So you're going to take the pitcher swing away. It's lame to do that. Your thoughts?
Yes, it is lame. I'm going to swing away. And there is a difference between wearing a jersey that is a player that's sort of neutral. I have these unwritten rules in my own head when I go to games. I won't ever wear a Yankees jersey to a Met game, just out of respect. I'll probably wear a Team USA from World Baseball Classic gear. Uh, Maybe Brooklyn Dodgers had a defunct team, a Montreal Expos team. I have these unwritten things, but I think there is a difference between someone that is trying to cause conflict. Like we've seen those
Yeah.
Yankee fans show up to Citi Field wearing a Yankee jersey to get a reaction. You're creating noise where it doesn't belong. And if you're wearing a jersey, like I'm thinking of a team that has nothing to do with anybody, and it's hard because a lot of teams do have some with interleague play. There is some bad feelings between a lot of teams, but let's
Right.
just say you wear a Todd Helton Rockies jersey to a Mets Dodgers game. Is there bad feelings? I think you'd probably just be like a couple
I know what
beers
you're
deep.
saying.
Like, this dude's rocking a Todd Helton jersey, the tank top Helton jersey, dude. I don't know. I personally, I will not do it, and I have certain unwritten rules. If I'm going to a game of a team, I will wear a neutral hat,
Mhm.
just because that's who I am out of respect to the team playing. But I'm also a baseball traditionalist.
So I'm with you like 1,000,000% here. I actually wasn't sure what you were going to say here, but this topic has come up a lot late. I mean, it comes up over the years, but it's been in the New York sports talk radio topic a lot lately because they're going back and forth about both Yankee and Mets fans having like little brother energy. There was the clip of a guy wearing a Mets Soto jersey in the bleachers in the Bronx and led to a fight. And then there's been chants at Yankee Stadium of like F Juan Soto when like the Yankees are playing, like the Mets aren't even there, which seems kind of like little brotherish on the Yankees fans' part. So you can go back and forth at both sets of fans. But I've always felt this way. I hate going to Citi Field, Mets and Reds, Mets Brewers, Mets Marlins, and there's Yankee jerseys. Like, go to the Bronx if you want to go watch a Yankee game, dude. It's just a little bit that way. Like, I hate it. And I think it goes both ways. I think it is lame, so I'm swinging away here. I've been to many baseball games that did not involve my team. I remember years ago getting invited to Braves Phillies, Citizens Bank Park. I think I just wore something neutral, right? Yankees Red Sox game I went 2 years ago, and again, just something neutral. I was at Derek Jeter's very last game winning hit against the Orioles. Like that one, I actually, and Met fans won't want to hear this, but like I got a little into cheering for him that night. I mean, that's a special game. If you have a problem with that, you can get lost. But like, um, I just don't like the antagonizing it. And even if you think you're not going to go to antagonize, like you might be bringing some stuff on yourself that's going to make you not enjoy the game as much. So I've always thought it's like a little bit minor league in a way, unless like you said, it's very random. Like I go out to Sacramento to watch like, A's and Padres are playing right now as I have it in front of me here. If I randomly wear like a Todd Hundley Mets jersey, like is anyone gonna have a problem with that? I don't think so. But all
No,
right, so I'll give you go ahead.
no, I was gonna say. I mean, it's the same energy too. I mean, diehard Islanders fan, as you guys know here on this podcast, go to a lot of Islanders games at the Coliseum, eventually Barclays Center, and now UBS. Inevitably, it's the same energy as Yankee fans. They're usually of the same ilk. Rangers fans and Yankee fans. They're usually it's
Yeah.
usually, if you guys are not from New York, it's usually Yankees, Rangers, and Giants, and then it's usually Islanders, Jets, and Mets. Sometimes you throw a mix in there. Like I'm a Yankees fan with the Islanders and the Green Bay Packers, so whatever match we want. Anyway, a lot of Rangers fans always show up to to UBS or the Coliseum, even though the team's not playing, and the Rangers will be in action that night, which is even more embarrassing for you. Like you're not even home watching the game. And then usually the same thing
True.
for the Mets. Like you'll be at a Mets game, 7:05 start. The Yankees will be either home or away. It doesn't matter. They're playing at 7:05 and you show up in your jersey. You're just trying to be antagonistic, or you're just
Yep.
you're an uneducated baseball fan. That's the immediate thing I think of you, whether you're wearing a Yankee jersey or not. It's a dumb move, and not a fan of it. Wear your neutral gear. Get an MLB hoodie, very neutral, and just rock it at the game. Support baseball.
100%. Just a quick update before I give you the next one. I believe Soderstrom's fine. He got up and continued to play first base. Looked uncomfortable, but stayed in the game. And in the bottom of the first inning, the A's are absolutely torching Dylan Cease and the Padres. They've scored 6 runs so far in the first inning. They're up 6-3. Like, wow, Cease is getting lit up. Anyway, more on that, I guess, another time. The other take a pitch, swing away. Mets players openly campaigning for the acquisition of Sandy Alcantara is Bush League. All right. After the game, there was lots of comments made, and yes, they were asked questions. They didn't just volunteer him, but they were not shy about saying Sandy Alcantara would be a great guy to go get at some point to play in Queens. Soto talked about it, Lindor, on and on and on. So take the pitch or swing away. That is Bush League of the Mets to do.
I'm going to take the pitch, although there is some gray area here. I know, of course, who wouldn't want former Cy Young winner Sandy on their team?
Right.
He's under contract with the Miami Marlins. I think There's something to be said though about, will this affect the team in any way? Like, I think publicly lobbying for another team's player, especially one under team control, does have this effect that I don't know how that plays out in the media. Maybe with penalty, you don't want any of those things being accrued here. There is an account that we follow on Twitter, Fish on First. They're covering this at length. They've been talking about Sandy and his potential trade, and we discussed the Marlins rebuild, and it's going to be a deep rebuild. So Sandy's not going to play part of when they're eventually going to be competitive. Uh, New York-based outlets like the New York Post have noted there's growing discomfort among the execs over the Mets' lack of subtlety. So your thoughts on this? This is kind of in the New York Post today. Multiple players dropping Sandy's name in interviews, and that might show some ambition, but it also puts the front office in a weird spot. Like I was mentioning before, you don't want them penalized in any way.
Yeah, I'm in the middle here. I ultimately would take the pitch. I think Bush League is the wrong term. It concerns me a little bit. There's a part of me that likes it, like the recruiting of these other dudes. Like I want the Mets to be a destination, a place that players want to come play. But ultimately, I don't think Sandy's gonna have a lot of control. I think the Marlins are gonna go for the best package. And like I've said before, I think there's a potential bidding war of some teams that have great systems. So I think the Marlins may do well when this actually comes to fruition. So I do worry a little bit of like they got to toe the line a little bit. I kind of like them sending the bat signal to Cohen and David Stearns, like, hey, like this is a dude you better go after if you're serious. And like once you sign Juan Soto for 15 years and all that money, like yeah, you're serious. You have to be serious every single year. So as a fan, I sure hope that it leads to them pursuing a guy like Sandy Alcantara. I could see if I was in the opposite situation and I was the Marlin fan and the current Mets players are openly talking about taking my guy from me, it would definitely rub me the wrong way. I can admit that. But I don't think they did anything wrong at this point. I'm not going to sit here and say I love it. I go a little bit back and forth about it.
Yeah, and I think Bush League's a little bit strong as well. But if I'm a Marlins fan, my ire will be directed at my front office, not the Mets players. The Mets are
True.
just having a good time and they're willing things into existence. Um, but you don't want to get the franchise in trouble. And I'm not saying they've done anything wrong thus far, but if there is a tampering charge that gets put on things, I know he's not a free agent, and it just blurs the line. Have the conversations in your group chat, talk about it at dinner. You can hint at it. You want them there. It's just, I don't know, just blurs the line a little bit. But they are bold right now, and their Mets have a little bit of personality right
True.
now, and that's one thing you have to say about them.
A little bit of swagger. I mean, even when they played the Blue Jays before like a day or two before the Vladdy extension, they were all out there like talking to Vladdy pregame, and everyone was like tweeting like, "Look how hard they're recruiting Vladdy here." And interestingly enough, there was a weird thing, and we don't have to go in a deep talk about this. I'll just put it out there. It was a really weird situation where like Pete Alonso got this like hometown hero welcome when they introduced him at the home opener. But they also cheered Vladdy a lot, as if, like the fans, as if to be like, "We want you here next year." I thought that was really weird, being that they play the same position. Like Vladdy would be replacing Pete more than likely. I thought that was a little strange. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I just think it was the excitement of the Mets crowd for that weekend.
Yeah,
We heard Steve Cohen call them out earlier in the offseason about them not showing up. Well, they showed up to the ballpark and they were loud.
definitely.
That place went crazy for Lindor's at bat and singing "My Girl." It was all over the internet. If you guys haven't seen it, gives you chills. Even as a non-Mets fan, it's something that the sing along. It's gonna be something that's being done all year. And I think they're just excited. A lot of those fans are out there at the ballpark, excited the baseball's back, and excited the possibility that Vlad could have been on their team. And they're sitting out there. Maybe he'll be our DH. You know what I mean? Like that's how New York fans think. We're going to sign every player, and not to be. This dude will be with the Blue Jays until 2039. So
Yeah,
keep your cheer. Boo him next time. Just do it.
yeah. Not every team is a farm league for the Mets and the Yankees and the Dodgers and all those teams. Believe it or not, like other teams want their guys too. So we're gonna try to kind of come to the conclusion of this episode, I think, here with a new segment. Pretty simple idea. We're gonna call it Red Hot Ice Cold. Steve and I are both gonna give our thoughts on either a player or a team that we just basically want to give a little bit of a shout out to, a little bit of love. One that is really hot, doing really well. And that, again, that could be a player or a team. It could be something else that we thought of. And then someone on the other side that is just struggling mightily. So I'll kick it off here. Do you want me to give both of my guys, or should we both give our hot and then our cold? How do you think we should do it?
You give your hot, I'll give my cold, and then you'll go back to hot, and then and we'll
All right.
bounce around that way.
All right. So I'm going to give some love here for my red hot. You know what? I went back and forth. I had Jose Ramirez on here first. And by the way, I'm trying to do recency here. I mean, the season's fresh anyway, but I went from March 31st to today, April 8th. 31st is basically like the day after we released our last episode. So I was looking at stats for those guys. I went individual players. I thought about going teams. So I went individual players. Jose Ramirez almost got the call for me. 6 games, 4 home runs, 5 RBIs, 347 WRC plus, 421 batting average. But ultimately, I had to go to the guy that got 0% in our poll when people were asked whose hot start is most sustainable. George Springer has been freaking unbelievable for the Toronto Blue Jays. All this talk about Vladdy, he has been unreal. Springer, and I don't think this includes tonight, 500. He's hitting 500 in those games between March 31st and today, April 8th. And I believe he added a home run tonight, either went 2 for 3 or 2 for 4. So that number is probably even better. Interestingly enough, he's still striking out 32% of the time, which is crazy that he can still be that successful. 769 BABIP, which might show you a little bit of luck that will come back the other way eventually. 53.3% hard hit percentage. And I just thought it was important to give him some love because I feel like the last couple of years he's become almost a little bit of a punchline, especially for Met fans. Like, hey, guys, remember when we complained that we didn't sign George Springer? Like, dodge that bullet. Springer, man, like he's showing he might have a little more left in the tank than everybody thought, and good for him. Because at one point he was a hell of a player, and he's showing he still is a bit of that player. He's hitting phenomenally. I haven't seen him this good at the plate in many years.
I thought you were going to say he's above the jokes in our fantasy league. I wasn't sure
That's a
where you
whole
were going.
different. No.
Yeah, I
That's
wasn't
for
sure.
fantasy only.
Yes, well, George Springer, shout out to what he's done. He went 4 for 4 yesterday, I believe, right? That's where he went out there and had an offensive explosion on the 7th. But I'm going red hot. I know I talked about him before, but I had to put Willie Abreu down here. Exceptional start. And as of yesterday, he was leading MLB in OPS 1.325, batting average of 424, on base of 537, slugging percentage of 788. You got to throw love on Willie Abreu, especially where he was and what he was acquired for. All things considered, you got to appreciate the red hot nature of this player on the Red Sox lineup.
Yeah, he's just been unreal, man. I can't wait to see how he continues to progress. On the other side, ice colds. I'm going Jazz Chisholm here. He got off to a nice start hitting those bombs. Looked like the torpedo bat was going to take him to the next level. I've talked a lot about how important I think he is to this Yankees team. Maybe the most important guy aside from Aaron Judge. I just think they need him to be electric, and I think he has that potential. But we've seen a little bit of both sides of Jazz Chisholm this year. From March 31st to today, 7 games played. He has struck out 15 times in his last 30 at-bats. He's hitting 133 in that time. Took an 0 for 4 today versus Detroit. And for the season, 41.3% K rate. That just cannot keep on going. You can't be doing that. You are in a prime spot in the New York Yankees lineup. They need you to be a lot more consistent. You cannot be the guy that played for the Marlins that would disappear at times and then look great and always be swaggy. He has a lot to say. After he got up to a hot start, he was very vocal about certain fans being morons and things like that. If you're going to want to talk that talk under the bright lights of the Bronx, you got to deliver more than this. And striking out 50% of the time, 40% of the time for the year is, to be honest, unacceptable.
So you're throwing darts over in the Bronx. I'm throwing darts over in Queens, and I have to go with Brett Beatty and Luis Angel Acuna. I think Luis Angel or Luis Angel Acuna. How do we say his name?
Luis Angel.
All right. Well, either way, when you start to hit a little bit better, there's a void at second base right now. And Jeff McNeil sidelined with the oblique strain. There is clearly a need at second base. Maybe they'll go out in the trade deadline and find a player and the bat if they are there. But some of the stuff, and again, this is entering Monday's game against the Marlins. The Mets second baseman had the worst on base plus slugging OPS in MLB at 306. Beatty and Acuna combining for a putrid 4 hits and 35 at bats, 1 walk, and 11 strikeouts. The defensive side of things been better than the offensive things. They were holding it down second base wise, but they're seeking more offense here. And David Stearns expressed that he wants one of these guys to emerge as the starting second baseman, and that has not happened. Luis Angel Acuna and Brett Beatty leaving Met fans in shambles. And I was close to doing Mark Vientos as well, by the way. Like he's looking a little bit shaky up there in Queens.
Yeah, the numbers are not great for Swaggy V, Mark Vientos either. I have a little more confidence in him. If you watch them day in and day out, I feel like some at bats are decent. He's just not getting the luck that he needs. Doesn't look as good as he did last year, obviously, but I feel like he'll be okay. Beatty has just done it to us again. Like the ultimate great in AAA, great in spring training, and as soon as the bright lights are on, I mean, watching him today, he just looked like he had no idea up there. Acuna, I mean, I don't know. I'm still on the fence with him, but I mean, now suddenly there's legitimately some Met fans that were trying to run Jeff McNeil out of town that are now like begging for him to be back sooner. And we have seen him running around the field, so he may be back here before the end of April at least. And don't forget, Ronnie Mauricio is waiting in the wings there. To me, he's always been the guy I've been most excited about out of that crew as far as Acuna, Beatty, Mauricio. So there's still a part of me holding out hope that he gets back here at some point before the All-Star break, and maybe we give him a shot there if we're still struggling for production at the second base spot. But you're right. Those two, it hasn't been pretty so far. Thank God the Mets pitching has been unbelievable so far because the offense is, especially the bottom half, is still trying to find it.
All right, well, let's come around third here. We'll talk about what we've been keeping our eye on for the rest of the week and just some things on our mind. All right, Devin, as we round third here to end the episode, anything on your mind that you're looking forward to in the coming week?
I mean, lots, man. There's baseball all the time. We got the college baseball stuff going on too. It's getting to some of the real important stuff. My dad and I are planning on hoping to go out to one of the Campbell Stony Brook games here, local game. Campbell, we interviewed Coach Chris Marks just about a month or two ago. So to go see them live would be cool. The weather looks awful, just as it's been. So we'll see how that plays out as far as the weather goes, but we'd love to get to at least one of those. So as far as looking forward to, obviously going to be watching my Metsies day in and day out as I always do, but get a little live baseball, I hope, this weekend, watching those Campbell fighting Camels against our local Stony Brook team.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a Stony Brook game earlier this year. The weather was horrendous that weekend as well, but it was a good time. It's free admission. Go out there and watch some quality baseball. And the goal of you going out there, 100%, taking in the game, but you got to get a picture of Chris Marks. You got to find a way to get a picture so we post it on social media. And I'm sure if you he'll recognize you, man. All you got to do is say it's Devin from Tablesetters. Unfortunately, I won't be there. I'm actually going to his neck of the woods. Taking the drive out to Carolina to see the family over here. So I'll be in the car heading to Carolina while the boys, my fighting Camels, heading toward Long Island, like two ships in the night passing each other. You mentioned it, though, as I'm looking forward to watching all the things in baseball and seeing how these teams settle in. I'm most focused on how the Braves respond. They're sitting right now. It's 1-8, or did they lose again tonight? Or they are 1-9. So
I got to check. That game was going back and forth for a while. Sale and Wheeler were both getting roughed up a little bit.
I'm looking to see how they respond because this is a pivotal weekend for them. It's the difference between falling into a 1-10, 1-11 spiral and just getting in the win mark. You got to start to tally the wins on the left-hand side at some point. You have to find a way to end this snide. And everyone makes a big deal about the beginning of the season and it looks different because the records, and people will have spurts where unfortunately even championship teams will lose 10 out of 11 during spurts, but it just feels different when you don't have the full season and or whatever, the big length of the season in front of you where you already have 60 wins or whatever it is to withstand the storm. And there is a storm brewing in Atlanta right now, weighing over them. The Reynaldo Lopez thing is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot going wrong for them. And maybe if you want to look at the glass half full for Atlanta fans, as much as things went wrong, maybe we'll have it tip the other side and luck will go in their favor in a big way where maybe they start to slip on a banana peel and fall back into rhythm. I have no idea, dude. This is not what we expected. We had Atlanta doing big things. I picked them to win the NL East, and it's not looking great so far.
Well, they did end up holding on to win tonight. So they were at one point down 5-3 to the Phils, ended up winning
That's 2 wins, baby.
7-5. I mean, it's a big one. It's a division one. It's against the Phillies on the night where they were starting Zach Wheeler. I will say I was watching the game right before I came on here to record, and Kyle Schwarber hit an absolute missile, 462 feet at 116.7 miles per hour on the exit velocity. If you didn't see that clip, I mean, just like a shot off the bat. Incredible stuff. But yes, the Atlanta Braves get their second win of the season, now standing at 2-8. So let's see if they can start a streak here.
So if you want to support the show, please follow us on Instagram at Tablesetters. Also on the X Machine. We're more active over there, posting, and Devin posting comments on there. And we're obviously posting a lot of our content on there, and reels go on both. And if you guys also want to continue to support the show and want to buy a gift for someone, go to Dugout Mugs, use code TS10 at checkout to save 10% on some great items. You can get one of those barrel mugs for your season, drink some beers out of it. You can get one of the bottle openers, but they have other products as well. Your favorite teams are on there. And I saw a lot of people rocking those. Of course, Ryan Bass, our friend from the Tampa Bay Rays broadcast, had his on the show with us. And go out there and get your favorite team out there. And it's a great product, and use code TS10 and you'll be helping us out and you'll be saving 10%. What else can you ask for?
Yeah, and as always, if you like what you're hearing, you enjoy listening to us, whether it's every week or twice a week or from time to time, 5-star reviews go a long way. Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. I think we're up to 38 5-star reviews, which is pretty cool. On Apple, you can actually do a little write-up, which is nice to give some detail on your thoughts. So any of those we absolutely appreciate. They can be done pretty quickly. So any feedback like that would be absolutely fantastic.
Have you been diving into the Duolingo to practice some of the language for the international markets we've been diving into, Singapore and all these spots, or no?
Yeah, man. Shout out to Singapore. We got up to 14, number 14 on the baseball chart there, like beating some of the, biggest podcasts that everyone knows in this country. We're in Canada and Japan. We were on those lists for a little while as well. So I don't know. Let's see if we pop up on a new country. I'm excited. I want to see another new country pop up on our chart listing.
Tablesetters, a baseball podcast, big in Singapore. It's our gimmick now. Like, I feel like we need a shirt that says big in Singapore.
Number 14 in Singapore at one point.
Yeah, exactly. That rolls off the tongue right there.
Yeah,
as a ring announcer in independent wrestling, that's how you introduce someone. They were number 14 in Singapore at one point. Tablesetters. Love it.
Don't ask how long. We don't know.
Exactly. We don't know. I mean, the metrics, as it becomes increasingly frustrating to figure out how many people listen, but we appreciate every single one of you. Like Devin said, please leave a 5-star review and help us out. And by the way, it's WrestleMania week coming up. Hope you guys enjoy the Easter Bunny and all that stuff, but it's really leave out 2 beers for Stone Cold Steve Austin on WrestleMania Sunday. We'll be back next week talking all things baseball, and we'll talk to you after a while.